Hello and welcome to episode 18 of the Not Yet Adults podcast. I, of course, am one of your hosts, Collin Geffrey, joined by the one and only, the one and only, the one and only Eric Zayas. How's it going, Eric?
It was going great until you went back to the one and only bit.
Why do you hate it so much? Like, the hardest part about getting into a podcast is like finding rhythm and have like reoccurring jokes and segments and stuff. And like, we already have one. It's the one and only Eric Zayas.
Well, I just don't like fun is the problem with that. Also, I think it's funny for me to have a problem with it every time, even though it's not a big deal.
That's fair. I mean, I've known you about a year and a half now, and that is true. You just don't like fun, and that's okay. You know, not all of us can be winners.
Completely against it.
Completely true. Well, folks, this, of course, is the Not Yet Adults podcast, where twice a week we get together and talk about just stuff, life, earth, stuff that, is kind of becoming an issue as we approach adulthood and things that are on our minds and things that we kind of want to talk through in an open and inviting setting. So that's sort of the gist of the podcast there. Eric, what did you have in mind for us to talk about today?
Well, Colin, I was thinking on this fine episode, we talk about our pets, the pets that we had as young boys and the pets that we've had throughout our lives into current day adulthood. What kind of pets did you have when you were growing up?
So I have always been more of a cat person, and it's not that I don't like dogs. In fact, I'd say nowadays I probably like dogs as much, if not more, than cats. But growing up, my dad never liked pets. That was like the hill he was going to die on, was like, we are not going to be a pets family, because he hates the mess and the clutter and the expense of, keeping them alive and all that stuff.
Yeah, keeping them alive is pretty annoying.
Oh my God, you got to buy him food. You got to give him some of the water. It's this whole thing. Anyways, so I think it was on, I want to say my parents' anniversary when I was like 5 or I'm going to say like 5. And my dad gave my mom this card, and I remember being there, and she read the card and then looked at him, and he smiled, and my mom ran into the bathroom, and there was a cat there that my dad had got for her.
For a second I thought I thought she was gonna run to the bathroom and be like, there's a cat, and he's like, what cat? I got you the keys to a new car. Why is there a cat?
Oh my God, that would have been the best. And there's like a cat in the car. I don't know how it got there. That's not how it's supposed to be. But no, that was a cool moment, because that was, despite the fact that he didn't want a pet and he, kind of put his foot down, that wasn't going to be part of our family. He knew that my mom especially, wanted one. And my mom had grown up with dogs and cats her whole life and really liked them. And so him getting her a cat was just kind of symbolic of him being like, I know this is important to you. And so that was cool. We named her Daphne after the Scooby-Doo character.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, but for some reason, I think it's because we were young or something, like no one really wanted to call her Daphne, so we just called her Meow. So we had her for, I'm going to say, about 2 years, and then we moved from Sacramento, California to Spokane, and it just didn't really make sense to move with a cat. And so my folks had this family friend that was looking for an animal, and she basically just adopted her, and she got a good home, and that was that. But that was my first time as a kid, like, they didn't die, but like having a member of the family that was just gone suddenly. Because like pets are very much a member of your family once you've had them for a little bit. And that was weird as a kid, like adjusting to that, of like, this is something that, I'm partially responsible for taking care of, and that I see every day, and that I pet and hang out with, and then it's just gone. And so that was hard to get used to. And obviously, because my dad had gotten my mom that cat, that was sort of him saying, okay, I'm okay with this now. We can have a cat. That's fine. Because cats are relatively low maintenance and they're pretty independent. And so when we got to Spokane, he was okay with us getting another cat and figuring out, how that was going to go about. And my grandfather, who visits Spokane about once a year, he worked at a golf course, and there were these like feral cats on the golf course, all these kittens that were cute and all that, but no one was taking care of them. They were kind of wild. And so he picked up one of the feral kittens, just a few weeks old, incredibly young. Probably shouldn't have done this.
Yeah, it sounds kind of dangerous to pick up a wild cat.
Yeah, I don't really know why. In hindsight, I'm like, oh wow, there's a lot wrong with the story. Anyways, he brought it up to us because we were looking for a cat, and we named him Tiger because he was like this little gray tiger cat. In hindsight, I think he actually took it away from the mother too young. because it was very young. And I don't think he saw a mother. I don't think he would have gone up to like a family of cats and taken one. I think it was on its own. But regardless,
He didn't look the mother in the eye and say, "I'm taking your child."
that's freaking dark, man. That's messed up. But anyways, about 3 days later, Tiger died. So like real soon. It like was ridiculous. Like the third day I came back and it was dead. And that was I think like grandparents die, great grandparents die at this point. But like that was the first time I'd like seen something die.
Oh yeah, you had to look at it.
Yeah. And it was like, man, that's rough. That's a tough one to go through. And like realistically, I shouldn't have really had any bond with this cat. I'd only known it for a few days, but it was really sad. And so after a little bit, we decided to look for a cat again. And this time we went to a breeder. He bred Persian cats, and he had this black boy Persian kitten that we just fell in love with. He really took a liking to me, and so we bought him and brought him home and named him Kenobi.
As in Obi-Wan Kenobi?
As in Obi-Wan, yeah.
I don't think there's any other Kenobis.
Not that I know of, but hey, it's Star Wars is popular. Maybe some crazy celebrity named their kid Kenobi and now they're curing cancer or something. Who knows? Anyway, so Kenobi was like my cat. I took care of him and he slept in my room and everything. Turns out the breeder, we can't confirm this, but we're pretty sure he kind of pulled a fast one on us because a common issue with purebred Persians is they get urinary tract infections, which is not a good thing. And about 2 years into us having him, he was like very clearly sick. And we knew it was really bad when he was like peeing blood, basically.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I was sorry to be so graphic, but so we took him to the vet, and the vet was like, he told us what was wrong and all this stuff, and basically gave us the sheet, like the price sheet of what it was going to cost, and it was going to be like $3,000 and 3 days of him basically in like cat ICU. And they didn't even know if they were going to be able to save his life because it was like really, really, really full blown urinary tract. It had gotten really bad. And so my mom, which at the moment was, really frustrating and sad, but she made the decision to put him down because you can't spend $3,000 on a cat's medical bills. And so I was there with him in the room as the doctor gave him the injection, and I kind of held him as he died. And that, I mean, again, I'd seen the kitten die, but that I'd only known for a few days. Kenobi was like my cat. I'd had him for, a couple of years, and I took care of him, and he was my guy. And just like holding him as he died, that like messed me up as a kid because I was like, I don't want a pet again. I never want to go through this because that sucks. And he was so young too. Like cats can live 15, 20 years if you take care of them. And he was not that old.
Oh my god. First, I just had to take a second to be like, I thought this was going to be a happy episode. I don't mean to put you on blast, but damn, dude.
It gets happier, I promise. After the next one, it'll get happier. This one's sad too. Sorry.
It needs to. I love you, man. It needs to get happy soon.
Okay. I got one more sad one. I'm sorry. I'll get through it. Okay. So a couple months later, my mom knows that I really wanted another cat, and that like it was just something that was kind of missing in my life. And so she and my little brother went to the animal shelter without me knowing, and found this kitten that was like 3 months old, very, very like intuitive and interested in people, and just had this really cool personality. She was almost all white with like a little bit of like a gray and brown around her head. They adopted her without me knowing from a shelter, and brought her home the next day. And it was like my cat, and we named her Cleo. And I had Cleo from the time I was 10 or 11 until I was 17 or 18. So I had her for a long time. And Cleo was like interesting because she had been abused, which is why she was in the shelter. But she really, really liked me. And so it was one of those things where when anyone tried to pick her up or anyone tried to go near her, she would often run away. She was very, very timid. But she would always hang out with me, to the point that like when I was working at my desk, she would come over and hop up on my lap and fall asleep, like just unprovoked. She's just a really cool cat. The problem and the thing that's important to remember here is no one else liked her. She wasn't really nice to anyone else. She would run away most of the time or wouldn't allow them to pick her up or anything. And when I got my letter from PLU, getting the offer and my scholarship and all that, it was kind of well established with my folks that like, if you leave, she's not going to be able to stay here because like she doesn't like any of us. She likes you, but she doesn't like any of us. And so I kind of sat with that for a while, and a few months later, around the time I was 17 or 18, but I hadn't left for PLU yet, we made the decision to take her to the shelter, and someone adopted her very quickly, and it all worked out fine. But That was sad though, because like that was my cat, and I'd had 6 or 7 years with it, and I was like my partner in crime. So that's my exciting history with cats. Dogs are way quicker. My dad was okay with a cat for a long time, but didn't want a dog. That's where he like put his foot down. And the same week we got Cleo, my mom and sister went and got a Maltese puppy named Lily. She's wonderful. Lily we still have to this day. She's fine. But that was like my dad like left and didn't come back till the morning. Like he was gone the whole night because he was mad. That was the one that kind of drove a wedge between him and my mom for a little while. Because I mean, he was like not okay with us having a dog. And Lily has long since become like a member of the family. She's cool. Everybody likes her. But she really bonded with my sister. And because my mom really likes dogs, she kind of wanted her own dog that she could get. And Lily also, like, I think wasn't a full blown Maltese. Like, she doesn't look like how a Maltese looks. She kind of looks a little bit more like a mutt. And so 3 years ago, my mom got her own Maltese puppy that she named Duchess. And Duchess is in some of my YouTube videos. She's very, very small, like 3 or 4 pounds, and she's fully grown. And she just kind of like the quote unquote proper Maltese now. And so she and I hang out all the time. My mom, has work and stuff during the day, so I babysit Duchess all the time, and she's really cool. But yeah, so that's kind of my history with pets. A lot with cats, some with dogs. Yeah, that's what I got. Sorry that so much of that was a downer. And it was like 10 minutes of sad stuff followed by, relatively happy stuff. Just the 2 dogs we have now.
I feel a little bit bad for putting you on blast in the middle there.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good. You're good. And also, I completely forgot I'm so sorry, man. A few months ago, my grandfather passed away. I'm sorry that this is all about death. And he had a cat named Winifred that he wanted us to take care of. And so as part of like one of his last requests to my mom was to take Winifred and bring her back here, excuse me. So now we have Winifred as well. She's very old. She's like 14 or 15 or something. But so now we have 2 dogs and a cat. It's kind of what our running total is. But anyway, sorry that I keep going off in the weeds, but
It's okay. I love older pets. They're so calm and nice and like.
Oh yeah, she's great. And she's super friendly and hangs out and will like just come up and lick you like a dog. It's very strange. She's a weird cat. But anyways, what about you, my dear friend Eric? What's your MO with pets and your history and all that?
Well, I have a few. I've had a few pets in my time. I don't remember exactly how old I was for each pet, but I remember the first pet we ever had was Buster. He was a beagle. We got him when he was a puppy, and I believe I was like 5, and so I've had him for throughout the years. Like, he's the pet I've had for the longest. We used to live in Spanaway, and when we lived in Spanaway, we lived in a 1-story house that had a really big backyard. Like, it had like a vine bush, and like there was a swing set and like a shed and all this stuff. Really nice like patio, and there was a lot of room for Buster to run and play, and it was great. He loved it. Around the time I finished junior high, I was going to high school. My family decided to move. Actually, no, this is while I was still going to junior high. So it was like 13, 12, like 12, 13. We moved to Ording, Washington, which is about 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes east of Spanaway. And the place we moved into is a really nice big house that I'm currently staying at right now, because my parents still live in the same house. It's a nice 2-story house, a lot of room, but very little backyard. And at the time we moved in, it wasn't a fenced backyard. There was a fence between my house and the road, like the main road, which was right next to our neighborhood. And then there was a fence between the houses themselves, but no fence like between the sides of the house and the front of the house, which had like the neighborhood, the cul-de-sac, and so forth.
So not great for a beagle, in other words.
Exactly, especially a beagle whose whole life has been used to a big yard with a get to run and play, and who will, like, if we leave the gate open, dart out and get into the road and get into like traffic and stuff. Like, this beagle loved to just run away. I feel like he was happy with our family, but he just liked to run. So if we didn't have it in a place where there was a gate, he would just go. So we tried to basically make him an indoor dog, and it just didn't work. He was like misbehaving. He was also getting older and getting sick. And this, how many years was this? Like 11 years. So he was probably in his 70s I would say, around that time. I don't know exactly how dog years work because I know they're different depending on the breed, I believe. But he was like getting really old and he was getting sick. And so after a few years or I don't know exactly how long it was that we'd been boarding, Buster was just kind of getting more and more sick, and like there was clearly something wrong with him. So we took him to the vet, and my parents decided to make the decision to put him down. And it was a huge moment in our family where they were just like, it was the first time we really dealt with like a death in the family in a huge way, because we've been fortunate enough to not to have many family members die, but Buster was with us since I was a kid, so it was a really huge moment. My mom and dad, or my mom and sister and my dad a little bit, were like crying a lot, and I was just like, I wasn't really crying, I was just like really quiet. Like, I guess I don't really cry much with grief, I just kind of react to it in a different way.
So just to pause you real quick, was it an instantaneous decision, or did they take him home and they talked about it for a couple days, or like what was the process?
They talked about it for a couple days. It was just like, it was, I don't remember the exact timeline of it, but it was definitely a pretty big discussion because it was a huge like moment. But yeah, it was just not working with Buster. He wasn't happy. He was sick all the time. And it was like, it got the sense that it was his time. Like, sorry, that was so long, got so sad. But that was the story of Buster. When I was younger, like I still didn't span away and Buster was still around. I wanted to have my own pet. And so I convinced my mom to get me a mouse. And this little mouse I named Jerry because I was a big fan of Tom and Jerry. And I found out that the mouse was a female mouse, so instead of changing her name, I just decided her name would be Jerry, but with an I, because in my mind that was more feminine. I don't know. So Jerry lived in a little plastic contraption with like, I think it's like not sawdust, but like a sawdust material as bedding, and a little like mouse wheel. And she was having a good time. And like I want to say 6 months in, I was really terrible with the upkeep. I think I was like around 10 at this point, and I learned that I'm really irresponsible with pets, or at least what I was. And so I definitely shouldn't have been the sole person in charge of this pet, because I rarely clean your cage, unfortunate to say, and I didn't feed her as often as I should. It was a really bad time. And then we eventually, I thought Jerry was lonely, so I convinced my mom somehow to get us a second mouse. I can't remember the name of this mouse, but it was a male mouse, and that was a huge mistake. That mouse died so quickly. It was like within a week or two, because Jerry was so used to being by herself. She was very territorial, and I'm pretty sure Jerry, I don't know if she killed the other mouse. I can't remember the name of the male mouse, but I think like something was going on there and they didn't like each other. In my child mind, I thought, oh, they'd be the best buddies, but in reality, nah, it was like an enemy on her turf.
It was cold-blooded, premeditated murder.
I think, I don't know. When the other mouse died, I didn't really like look very closely at it. I just let my parents kind of deal with it, and so I didn't do an autopsy on the other mouse. But then after that mouse passed away, very quickly after, Jerry passed away, and so maybe there was some sort of sickness transferred from one mouse to the other, or actually I think it wasn't so much of a sickness, but I think maybe at the time I thought that it was a sickness, but then I talked to my mom, who revealed to me something that the person at the pet shop that sold us the mouse told her, because it had been a year since we got Jerry. And apparently mice only live like about a year. So I thought it was, it's been some sickness. And then my mom told me, yeah, mice just like only live like a year. And at the time, it was a big moment when I realized like, I need to learn how to be more responsible before I get another pet. Another pet that I had, that I was responsible for but didn't want to be, was a betta fish, who was given to me by a distant cousin. I don't remember her name, but she basically would visit every now and then. She was like on military leave all the time, and one day she just brought her fish and was like, I'm going on deployment, I need someone to watch this fish, and she just gave us a fish, and I was like, okay, guess I'll be in charge of this fish. I don't even remember the fish name. This is so terrible.
There's the sad thing about covering 20 years of us having pets is every story ends with, and then they died. And it's like, man, you do all this in 20 minutes. It's like, geez.
Beta fish, can't remember its name. It was a really short part of my life, and it wasn't like a pet I was particularly attached to because I didn't want the fish. Found it one day, like floating upside down, and then just kind of unceremoniously flushed down the toilet. And this is really messed up, but if I'm being honest, I gotta say this. There was a bit of relief when that pet passed away because it was like, oh, I'm no longer responsible for this pet I didn't really want in the first place. So that was the end of Beta Fish's story. And now we're getting into some happy pet territory. We've had 2 cats. I think we had more than 2 cats, but the 2 cats I remember are Toby and Sophie. Toby was this orange like tabby cat, and Sophie is this like black and gray cat that we still have around. We've had them, I believe, since we moved here, maybe a little before, but they had opposite personalities. Sophie was very calm, and I think we got her from my mom's friend, and then Toby was a cat that I'm pretty sure was a wild cat that was just came to the house one day, and we're like, oh, we have a cat now, another cat. And Toby always wanted to escape. Toby would constantly leave the house and like run outside, and we couldn't chase him. But then within like a few hours, he'd be clawing on the door and to want to be let in. And Sophie would we could open the door and be like, go out, and Sophie would just stare at it and be like, I'd rather nap. I'm not gonna. Sophie never wanted to escape. We kind of got used to Toby just like fleeing the house and like eventually coming back. And even sometimes it would be if Toby ran out of the house when it was late, we would just go to bed, and the next morning he'd be like at the front door, and we'd let him back in. So one day Toby ran out and never came back, and I to this day don't know what happened to him, but I'm hoping Toby found a nice family, or I like to think Toby went on an adventure. Probably not the case, but I like to have happy thoughts, I don't know what happened to Toby, unfortunately, but Sophie stayed, and we've had Sophie for years, and she's an old woman now and kind of just like sleeps all day. And then 2 pets we got recently, 2 little dogs named Oliver and Leo. Oliver, we've had 5 years or so. We got him at a shelter in Puyallup on River Road, and he was really young when we got him, and we were told he has like heart murmur or something, so that was something to be worried about. But he's this little brown fluffy, or like not super fluffy, but he's this little brown terrier. Kind of looks like a Dr. Seuss character, or if you ever read the Berenstain Bears, I guess, looks like one of those, but in terrier form. And Oliver's great, I love him. And then more recently, we got Leo, a little black terrier. I guess we're a big fan of terriers for some reason, with floppier ears, who's a bit younger, but for some reason genetics have decided that he's going to be bigger than Oliver, even though Oliver is older. And it's really, really weird. Oliver's the smaller dog. Leo's pretty small, but a little bigger than Oliver, but still younger. I think we got Leo at the same shelter. I'm not really sure, but Leo's got a very childlike personality and kind of whines and makes these whining noises that make him sound like a horse. It's really interesting. But yeah, those are the 3 pets that are still around and still doing well. And that's the current lineup of pets.
That's what we got. It's the Geffrey Zayas pet clan. It's pretty crazy. So, admittedly, I don't think when we started this episode we thought we were going to take the whole time talking about our history of pets, but that's fine. That's what the show is. Real quick, what are just kind of running down the list real fast? What are some of your likes and dislikes when it comes to pets? Things that maybe you enjoyed more as a kid, or things that you're a little bit more annoyed by as an adult. Kind of anything in there.
Something I really like about pets, or like the companionship they provide, because like we talked about how like when we lose them it's a really big deal and really tragic, and they become another part of the family. And like, so I like having someone who's always around and like someone to like cuddle with. But like something that like probably is the biggest problem with me and pets is the like upkeep. And I mean, like, they constantly chewing stuff, constantly leaving hair everywhere. I don't know. I think over the years I've gotten better at this, but when I was a kid, I was definitely not responsible enough to keep a kid.
Definitely weren't responsible enough to keep a kid.
Definitely not responsible enough to keep a kid, but not even responsible enough to really take care of a pet. And now as an adult, I have more time and more maturity and more just more of a mindset of taking care of another living being.
Well, I think it's interesting. You and I both mentioned, with a couple of our pets growing up, how it was kind of that idea of like ownership of like I wanted to have my animal that I could take care of and stuff. But both you and I probably didn't take as good of care of them as we should because we're a kid and like going and playing more video games is way more exciting than cleaning out the cat box or whatever. And so there's kind of that safety net there of your parents are there and they're probably not just going to let it die. But at the same time, like they need to teach you to have that responsibility for it. And so that's, I feel like in a lot of situations, not something you're equipped to handle until you do get a little bit older. And the downside to that is the more you take care of an animal, the more you realize how much work it is. And when you don't have your parents there to change the cat box or take the dog out or whatever it is, and it's all on you to do that, you realize like, Jesus, God, this is a lot of work. And especially, brushing the animals and stuff like that. That's my main gripe with cats in particular, but dogs too, is just they leave hair freaking everywhere, man. It's unbelievable, especially like I wear a lot of dark colored clothes and we traditionally have had lighter colored cats and dogs, and it's just unbelievable how often I have to pull hair off my clothes. It's disgusting. But yeah, I'm totally with you. I think there's a sense of companionship there. They are a member of the family for all, intents and purposes, and that's, hard to let go of, but at the same time, they're just a lot of work, man. It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, we touched on that idea of sort of responsibility when it comes to pets and how the second it becomes your job, sort of the dynamic changes. And I feel like maybe the reason that we're a little bit better at taking care of animals now that we're older is in a lot of ways, animals are kind of like the litmus test as to whether or not you can have kids.
Yeah, I feel like pets are definitely practice children.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. Obviously, when you're 9, 10, 11 years old, you're not ready to have a kid. And so you're probably not going to do a very good job, taking care of a pet. And of course, that's not to say that pets are the same amount of work as kids. Obviously, it's not.
Yeah, they're definitely more work.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Pets 1,000%. They can't talk to you and tell you what's wrong. You just have to guess blindly. At least kids have, common language. But no, it's very much like, are you ready for this next level of responsibility? Can you take care of another life? I feel like, at least with me personally, it's kind of that intersection point of I wanted to take care of a pet when I was younger, but I wasn't necessarily ready to. And now I am totally ready to, but I don't necessarily want to. And it's kind of that weird juxtaposition of, damned if you do, damned if you don't. But yeah, it's definitely, I think, a good way to learn responsibility. If you're a young kid and you're thinking about getting a pet, maybe, I don't know if Tamagotchis are a thing anymore, but maybe get a Tamagotchi first and go there, like a virtual pet where if it dies, it's not that big a deal. Well, folks, that's what we have to say about pets. Hopefully you enjoyed us telling our incredibly depressing, sad stories for 20 minutes, followed by 10 minutes of, I don't know, kind of uplifting stuff, I suppose.
Was not expecting this to be a bummer of an episode.
I mean, it is what it is, man. That's what the show is. Sometimes it's happy, sometimes it's sad. Eric, if we had to kind of put, I don't know, a cherry on top or a pin in this, sort of a takeaway, what the heck do you got for me? I don't know. I don't know a good segue for this one, but what are kind of your overall feelings about pets as we enter adulthood?
Okay, well, way to put all the pressure on me. Thank you for that. Hold your pets close while you got them because they're not going to be around forever. Was that supposed to be happy? That ended up being more sad.
It's true though, right? And we talked for 20 minutes about all our pets that have died or ran away or got lost or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, I think we still look back on those as mostly fond memories because you enjoy your time with them, and it's hard to know how much time you're going to have with them until suddenly one day you don't. But like Eric said, just hold them close, take care of them. I understand it's a pain, but get up, go change the cat box, give them food, take them for a walk. Like it's one thing to be lazy, but it's another thing to be neglectful. And when you're a pet owner or a parent, or you're responsible for another life in any way, shape, or form, you gotta put that first. You can't let your own laziness and agenda kind of take over. So Alrighty. Well, folks, this has been episode 18 of the Not Yet Adults podcast. Remember, you can get the podcast every Monday and Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time on YouTube, SoundCloud, Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and all sorts of podcast services. We're also on social media at Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Not Yet Adults, as well as on our own subreddit, r/Not Yet Adults. Check those out if you have the time. Leave us a comment. Let us know what your favorite thing from the show has been so far. We would really appreciate it. We would really appreciate it even more if you could take 2 minutes out of your day and go give us a rating on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, whichever you use if you're on iOS. It really helps the podcast get seen and listened to by more people, and we put a lot of work into this, so that is something we would really appreciate. We will be back this Monday with episode 19 of Not Yet Adults, talking about something new, and we are very much looking forward to it. So thanks for listening, and until next time, this has been Not Yet Adults.
Bye.